Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to unpack a reality that affects pretty much every single person watching this right now. I mean, you likely have a smartphone within arm's reach, right? Maybe it's even in your hand. But what if I told you that the device in your pocket is actually the gateway to a massive, entirely unregulated surveillance ecosystem? Today, we're going to look really closely at the data and the research to understand exactly how our everyday devices are tracking us, who is buying that information, and ultimately what it means for our future. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the tracker in your pocket, then look at the data brokerage ecosystem, the rise of surveillance capitalism, predicting and controlling behavior, the ultimate threat of modern spyware, and finally, regulating the invisible market. We're essentially peeling the onion here. I promise you, we are going to connect the dots from your everyday app permissions all the way up to terrifying state-grade spyware. Section 1. The tracker in your pocket. Everyday telemetry. Look at the hardware you interact with every single day. Your phone goes everywhere with you. It's almost like a digital best friend, but it's a best friend that takes meticulous notes behind your back. It really begs the question, does your phone know you better than you do? Well, academic research out of Trinity College Dublin reveals that iOS and Android devices share telemetry data with their parent companies on average every 4.5 minutes. That is happening all day, every day, even when your phone is sitting completely idle on a desk. Actually, scratch that, it happens even if you are completely logged out of all your accounts. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer multiplier. That same academic study found that when devices are just left in their default states, Google collects roughly 20 times more telemetry data from idle Android devices than Apple does from idle iOS devices. It's a massive difference. Let's break that down into the raw numbers. While an iPhone is sending about 52 kilobytes of data to Apple every 12 hours while just sitting there idle, a Google Pixel handset is sending around 1 megabyte. That's enough to fill a whole lot of text files. And this tracking can be incredibly difficult to stop. An investigative report by the Associated Press, which was later confirmed by Princeton researchers, found that Google services continue to track and store minute-by-minute location data on over 2 billion devices, even if you explicitly go into your settings and hit pause on your location history. The data just keeps flowing. That pause button, it's essentially an illusion. Section 2. The data brokerage ecosystem, the invisible middleman. So you might be wondering, what happens to all this collected data? And who actually gets access to it? Well, welcome to the world of data brokerage. It's defined as the virtually unregulated industry of collecting, aggregating, analyzing, buying, selling, and sharing personal data right on the open market. We are talking about companies you have literally never heard of, surreptitiously gathering thousands of data points on you. Everything from your race and your real-time GPS location to major life events like a pregnancy or a divorce. And the most striking part? This happens almost entirely without your consent. Now, this isn't just some abstract privacy issue. It has devastating, real-world harms. Written testimony provided to the U.S. Senate Finance Committee by a lead researcher at Duke University highlights exactly how this unregulated data is weaponized. The research shows that data brokers widely advertise lists that actively exploit vulnerable populations. For example, lists of military personnel are purchased by criminals to run targeted educational scams. People's search websites aggregate public records and current whereabouts, which have tragically been used by abusers to hunt down and stalk survivors of domestic violence. And data regarding mental health conditions, things like Alzheimer's or dementia, it's openly sold and can be acquired by fraudsters to target the elderly. Section 3. Rise of surveillance capitalism, a new economic logic. So the crucial point is how this ecosystem actually became the default state of the internet. Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff calls it surveillance capitalism. She defines it as a radically disembedded and extractive variant of information capitalism based on the commodification of reality and its transformation into behavioral data. Simply put, this goes way beyond standard advertising just trying to sell you a pair of sneakers. It's about harvesting human experience, turning it into behavioral data, predicting your future patterns, and then selling those predictions in what Zuboff calls behavioral futures markets. To put that into perspective, under industrial capitalism, the economic machine exploited the natural world, forests, land, oil, for profit. But under surveillance capitalism, the economic machine exploits human nature itself for profit. The pioneers of this logic realize that your daily habits, your routines, your psychology, they are all highly profitable, endlessly extractable commodities. Section 4. Predicting and controlling behavior. The power of inferences. Let's move to and see how this builds. Because this commodified data isn't just about knowing where you've been, it's about predicting what you'll do next, creating a literal pipeline of control. Step 1 is that mass data collection we just talked about. Step 2 is algorithmic inference. This is where companies run algorithms to predict highly sensitive information about you that you never actually shared, things like your income level or your emotional state. And then step 3 is fusing all of this together into deep, targeted psychological profiles. For a really concrete example of this in action, we just need to look at the landmark Cambridge Analytica case. Methodological research shows that this event proved exactly how scale-free psychological profiling works in practice. By simply analyzing a user's pattern of Facebook likes, they were able to predict personality questionnaire scores with a 0.56 correlation. Now, in the world of data science, that is a staggeringly high level of accuracy. It means your behavioral traces can seamlessly transition from commercial advertising into targeted political influence, categorizing you psychologically, completely without your explicit consent. Section 5. The ultimate threat. Modern spyware. State-grade surveillance. So what happens when this digital tracking architecture is exploited to its absolute extreme? If psychological profiling is the commercial climax of all this, we now have to look at the geopolitical climax. The European Data Protection Supervisor recently analyzed tools like the NSO Group's Pegasus software and stated unequivocally that it is a complete game changer. We are no longer talking about standard data collection. This level of intrusiveness threatens the very essence of the fundamental human right to privacy. It interferes with the most intimate aspects of our daily lives. Just listen to these terrifying technical capabilities. Pegasus can launch what's called a zero-click attack. That means you don't even have to click a malicious link to be infected. No way, right? It gains full administrative root privileges, allowing it to easily bypass end-to-end encryption to read your private messages. It can secretly activate your camera and microphone to record the physical world around you. And the modern versions? They inhabit the phone's temporary memory, meaning if you reboot the device, the software vanishes without leaving a single digital trace. It effectively turns your smartphone into a 24-hour surveillance device that even tech giants like Apple and Google struggle to defend against. Section 6. Regulating the invisible market. The path forward. Okay, deep breath. After staring into the abyss of this wildly unregulated ecosystem, how do we actually fix it? Well, in the United States, researchers at Duke University outlined 3 immediate steps recommended to the Senate Finance Committee. First, strictly control the sale of brokered data to foreign entities to protect national security. Second, outright ban the sale of the most sensitive data, specifically health information and real-time GPS location. And third, stop data brokers from exploiting loopholes by explicitly banning the practice of inferring sensitive data from other non-sensitive data sets. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the European Data Protection Supervisor is taking an even harder line when it comes to the extreme end of the spectrum. The EDPS concluded that because highly advanced, military-grade spyware like Pegasus affects the very essence of the right to privacy, its use is simply incompatible with democratic values and the rule of law. Because of that, they've recommended an outright ban on its development and deployment within the EU. Which brings us to a deeply provocative thought from Shoshana Zuboff. Will we be the masters of information, or will we be its slaves? The digital future is absolutely ours to build, but doing so requires understanding these invisible systems operating right in the shadows. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this journey has illuminated the tracking ecosystem for you and left you thinking critically about the ultimate fate of your own digital footprint. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.